And we mentioned that we might be blowing teams away. This is a statement, especially compared to look at the rest of the league and the results around there. Again, Leicester 4, Plymouth 0. I mean, I know, where do we even start with that one?
About time, eh? Nice to see some goals go in. Good display. I think it still felt like a game of two halves to me, though. I don't know what you thought.
I'm with you. Two halves.
And so, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see like what happens next. But I thought, big change like Daka starting, Cannon coming on. That was good to see. That's a debutant as well. Lots of people getting their, first appearance of the season. Very good. But yeah, some of the football today was sublime. That I think was really encouraging to see. I think as well, like the patterns of play. What's interesting is this is like a week break we've had between matches. That hasn't happened for a while. And I feel like that maybe was shown in like the performance. Really, the only negative I can say, I'm sure you're probably going to come onto this, but after we went one up, for some reason, our back six just decided to start giving the ball away in the most stupid areas. And to be honest with you, Plymouth should have scored one, maybe even two goals. That said, I think we could have scored a lot more too. I'll be interested to see what the XG was because we were like in comfortable control there. But yeah, way more like it. And if that's the shape of things to come, very encouraging.
Yep, really is. In terms of the XG, I'll get that up in a second. I mean, in terms of that, I'm with you. I think coming into that, the fact that again we got the first goal. I did miss the first half an hour. I didn't manage to see the goal at all. But in the first half an hour, was there much to talk about? Because I did miss that. But after that, there was quite a few bits that happened.
I think so. I think we actually started the game pretty good. We put some really nice patterns of play together. You could see sort of Fatawu getting involved very early on. We won a penalty quite early on. I think it was stupid from their behalf, but it was a clear penalty. Mavadidi took it. It was honestly a pretty poor penalty, and it was lucky to go in, but it did go in. You could see he grabbed the ball straight away as soon as it was given. He probably realized that was my chance to score, which I kind of like. I think if you wear the 10 on the back of your shirt, you're supposed to be like a bit of a talismanic player for the team. Had he missed it, that would have been a different story, but he put it in. That was good. We kept control for a bit. And then just weirdly, what happened, I think probably when you started watching, I'm not sure, but around that time, the defenders, for whatever reason, just started having brain farts and kicking the ball straight to them. And multiple people were responsible for it again, like, Fass, Vestergaard, Chowdhury got caught on the ball a little bit. Daka got caught on the ball a little bit. I mean, at the same time, sometimes with those two who got caught on the ball, the thing is, that's the point, right? If the team plays man for man and they push right up, and that's what Plymouth were trying to do, that can happen. But it's funny. I do think that that's still something that we see happen to Leicester quite a bit. That like once we make one mistake, it's not just we make one mistake, but it feels like we then have a sticky period for a bit. But we dug ourselves out of it. But I mean, yeah. So they had a really like gilt-edged chance where they could have scored. I felt, and they didn't. They had like a one-on-one, and Mads made a good save, but I think that shows there's like a recurring theme in this division that we get away with it. Equally, though, we had like a amazing counter attack. Mavadidi took his time, played a great through ball to Fatawu. Fatawu then slid in and then Didi. He tried to poke it with his right foot. I think he should have taken it with his left. I think he did that because the previous chance, because he always had another. Do you know that amazing move we love to see where they all come deep and then the attacking eights go through past the halfway line and they get played with the through ball and they're one-on-one. Like we've seen that move a number of times. The frustrating thing is we still haven't scored a goal like that yet. This time I thought, oh, go on, Will, stick it in. He took it with his left foot. At least he tested the keeper, but it didn't go in. And therefore, I think the second time he decided to go with his right because he'd missed it with his left. Luckily, he scored in the second half. We'll get to that second half in a moment. But yeah, so first half, we could have scored two ourselves. But I think, 2-1 maybe would have been a fair scoreline there. But then what was good to see is that in the second half, that kind of mistakes was cut out, really. Maybe when we made loads of subs towards the end, yeah, the game kind of got killed as a spectacle. But I think that's okay. It's good to give a lot of people debuts. We should maybe give each one of those people some talk a bit later. But that's how the first half kind of panned out. Probably deserved to be ahead, but was a bit sticky. And then second half was more like the machine came back, I felt. And I think as soon as the second one went in, you could see their heads dropped and it's game over at that point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just want to come back to some of the bits you mentioned as well. So we'll come on to the Mavadidi or the Adidi miss in just a second. But just in terms of the shots that happened as well, it's something we can get away with in the Championship. If this happened in the Premier League, we can't. There's a percentage. All of the shots in that first half went straight at the keeper. Oh, nice. Hermansen wasn't really troubled. We can't rely on that if we go into the Premier League. And also, if we face the likes of Ipswich or people like that, they're going to punish us. Leeds will punish us. Middlesbrough will punish us. Other people around the top six will punish us with these kind of positions where, again, Chowdhury lost his man, I think, at 20, 32 minutes. And it was a one-on-one, but he hits it straight at the keeper. And I think it was the same thing with Callum Wright again. An old Leicester player, completely forgot about him as well. 45 minutes does exactly the same thing. One-on-one, hits it straight at the keeper, straight in his hands. Again, that's something that we can work on and need to get better at. But one thing I want to mention as well is that miss, because with that miss, it was a beautiful. And this is the thing with people think, oh, we're going to play forward. Oh, we've got one way of playing. For me, you've got multiple ways of playing within that one formation that you can. I think the coach's voice covered that as well. You can cover multiple ways, and that showed you we can hit them on the counter even with that formation. For me, I thought Mavididi held on to it a little bit too much, but then he played it. I was like, oh, there's the next goal. Going to roll it in. Do you think Fatawu just, again, the pass was just a bit too ahead of Ndidi, or do you think Ndidi just went with the wrong foot?
It's funny. I saw some people giving Fatawu grief for not taking on a shot himself, but I think that's way too harsh. I think that's it was a good enough pass. I think both the wingers had great games today. He put a good pass in, and Ndidi should be scoring that. And you could see that like Daka and Fatawu both did that afterwards. So I think even Ndidi did that. So I think that they know that. I'm glad for him that he got a goal in the end anyway, though, because he did deserve it for his like relentless play. It's just one of those things we got to go back to it. But that chance you can't miss that. You just can't. If you end up dropping points in the game because of something like that, that's unforgivable, right? And it's funny how he had like sort of two easier chances. He's actually scored probably his hardest one there in Didi, which is funny. But yeah, maybe you could say Fatawu should put it in, but I don't think you can. You could be selfish then if you test the keeper. I would say 9.5 times out of 10. If you play the ball sideways, it guarantees the goal, like KDH did for Winks last year. Whereas, if you go for the keeper, even if you hit it true, I think the stats will even back it up. But I mean, I suppose, as you can do here, if the pass goes slightly awry, you get a problem, which is what happened. But it is what it is, yeah. But I mean, yeah, that was a bit annoying because, I mean, we were kind of laughing in the chat, but it's like at that point in time, it was still 1-0 and Plymouth had a lot of chances. So the thing is that
and quality chances as well. And also, I think we did rely on a player that kind of gets over. And we'll get onto him more in the second half because he was great in the second half. But I think he made one key pass as well for the second goal. I want to just give it Hermansen credit for a player of his age, the way he behaves, and also he doesn't get a lot of opportunities. He plays mostly outfield, playing as kind of the back four when he plays alongside Vestergaard. But when he's called upon, and we've said this about Kasper Schmeichel a few times, when he needs to make a save, he makes it. And it's something that is both. We mentioned, I think, when we talked about the Liverpool game, we're going to give opportunities away. We're going to give chances depending on how we've played. I've been very, very surprised in such a good way how he's managed to defend the one-on-one opportunities or an opportunity of guilt out chance. Hermansen, I don't have. Before I didn't have the chance of Hermansen's got it. It's like no, I trust him almost like Schmeichel.
He's a top quality keeper. We've said it all. I think he's the best signing we've made since Fofana. I think he's going to go for a lot of money. Hopefully, it doesn't go too soon. But surely there'll be teams in the Premier League that we're looking. We need a keeper who's good with his feet, good on the ball, can dominate the box and stuff like that. And he'd be coming up on all the scouting reports. Like you'd be thinking, wow, this guy, what can't he do? I think I think the thing that surprised me the most is I thought when we signed him, I was quite confident with his ability on the deck and being able to play the passing that wouldn't be a problem. We were also linked with Zach Steffen, for example, from Man City, who was like a similar thing, who has made. But the difference between those two is that Zach Steffen has had some high-profile blunders, including in the FA Cup, where he's given it away. And Man City have even lost games because of it. And I was expecting Mads to be more that type of keeper. Not quite a mad keeper, as you might call it, but it's in mental crazy because of course he's mad, like living up to the term. That's what I thought might be a bit ironic with him signing. But I did expect him to be a bit weak there, and you could tell that he was like more of a modern one. But honestly, when I see him play, that he's not been tested to the same level. But I think he looks better than, for example, Robert Sanchez, who's gone to Chelsea and was extremely highly rated. maybe even David Raya, who's playing for Arsenal. That might be a bit outrageous to say something like that. But honestly, I feel in terms of the shot stopping part, he's proved to be really good there, and he is good on his feet. So I right now you'd have to say it's the signing of the season, I think.
Yeah.
Just because I just don't think for that amount of money you could get anything better than that. But yeah, look at that. It sums it up.
Yeah. Shout out Gary as well. Again, Gary, again, love to have you on. I know you're a bit busy at the moment, but again, love to have you on as well. But yeah, it's the most comfortable I've ever seen. I'm kind of with you in terms of I was comfortable with Schmeichel from a defensive point of view, from a shot stopper, but I wasn't comfortable with him from corners, from when we're playing out from the back, because at times it would just go to either linesman at times. As an overall keeper, I don't want to keep going back to it, but he's just phenomenal, isn't he? And he's only,
Yeah,
what, 23, 24, which is like 19, 20 if he's an outfield player. Well, he is an
well,
outfield player. You get my point.
that's just it. I mean, it's funny because for the Danish team, he's still not their number one. They're still playing Kasper, probably because they don't play a similar style of football to us. But yeah, I mean, I think with him, he's gonna, like I say, go to the very top. I mean, yeah, coming back to Kasper, like I do remember infamously, we had a game against Spurs last day of the season where we took the lead twice. We had some corners coming in and Kasper made some right clangers that cost us that day. And at the end of the day, I was, like, well, the amount of times that Kasper saved our bacon, you can't, a bit of a shame it happened in that game, but I didn't really have anything against him. But that was a weakness to him. His distribution as well, he had issues with it at times. So we don't know if Mads can do this in the Premier League. That's the one thing we got to be careful of. Like what I would say is that like everyone's laughing because today Man United have been beaten 3-0 at home by Bournemouth. But that also kind of shows like what the Premier League is about, is that the Premier League, there is quality all over the place. And even a game like that well, maybe it's unfair to say that on paper that's like a home banker because Man United have been pretty bad this season. But that's still a bit of a turn up, right? So we'll have to see what happens when we get there. And that in general is the thing with the way that we're playing. I will say that I think this was like the most cohesive in terms of like back to front. I feel the team's been, maybe even all season, to be honest with you. Like whilst we did give the ball away sloppily, in terms of like transitioning from back to front and making these great moves, and it being quite directly attacking, which I think is the big difference. I'll come to that later on in the show. This was, I think, one of the better performances we had, which is really good to see. So this season is all about practicing that and getting it good so that when we get to the Premier League, because we've got to cut out the mistakes. That's the issue. You're going to get punished hard from it, right? I do think if we go up, the first season will be difficult, but there's a lot to like here, I think. So that's kind of how I'm seeing it at the moment. But Mads will be absolutely key. There's no doubt about it.
Yep. And I'm hoping that, again, this is him in a few months into his tenure, when he gets bigger, when he gets stronger, when he gets more comfortable with his back line. And he's going to thrive even more as part of that. Let me just get into some of the comments as well. Yeah, shout out to Scott. So thanks, Scott. Again, thanks for tuning in, mate. James, Sean says we've got Dave Buchanan forgot. We are going to come on to Cannon in a second, and we come on to Daka in a second because, again, not even there's so much to talk about in this game.
Yeah. Well, let's get through because I think there's a lot of talking points already.
There is a lot. Just want to say shout out to obviously Luke as well. So big up to you, Luke, as well. Again, Sensei Anil. Again, you've been as well as part of that. Again, man of the match is Enzo. I mean, that's going to be one of my questions. But coming into that starting lineup, I mean, we've touched on some of the players already, but God, is it that one? It is, because I've got two formations, one and two at the beginning. So this is how we set up. Again, I think everybody was surprised the fact that Daka was starting in the game. What did
Not
you
just
make
that he
of
was
him?
starting, but the fact that Vardy and Iheanacho both had the day off. Now that was quite incredible. I think that is. I'm curious. It could be that there's been some light illnesses in the squad or something like that. But that's quite a statement, I think, from Enzo. I wonder if he sees them as being like, do you know, we always have kind of like sets of players. So, for example, KDH and Ndidi, they're like a pair, right?
Yeah.
They'd be like dating IRL, right? They're always, whenever one's in the team, the other one's in the team with him, right?
Just they work each other well. They just pair each other up really nicely.
Usually it's Winks and Ricardo, though, of course, a suspension today. That's why Hamza came in. And yeah, Iheanacho and Vardy is like another one as well. Like if one starts, the other one's on the bench. So this time is kind of unusual in of them. But here we got Daka and Cannon. So that was obviously a huge turn up. Now, what I will say is that the second goal we scored, which Daka scored, I do wonder if that was a tactical ploy that he made. So they were doing the same trick that everyone does, they were going man for man marking on us, and Patson had someone on him the whole time who was there to like link up the play. But the goal that we scored with Patson, it was a ball over the top. But if you literally look at how the move transpired, just before Mads put it over the top, previously Patson was dropping deep for the link up play, and the defender was on his back. Right, then the move didn't go anywhere, and then Mads put it straight up behind the space, and at that point, Patson just left him in the dust, and the defender was caught on his heels. And I wonder if that's something that we looked at prior to the game, because I'll say that this game was the most direct I think I've seen Leicester play all season. Right, I quite liked
especially in
it,
the
to be
second
honest.
half.
Yeah, especially in the second half, right? Even in the first, I think we did it more times than we've done it before, but yeah, second half especially, right? And so yeah, Patson probably is the fastest player we've got now because Vardy isn't what he was, right? I think peak Vardy is still probably the fastest player we've ever had, but Patson now must be. I don't know. Maybe Fatal was quite quick. He could be as well. But yeah, all three of those front three. If you think about it, what have they all got in common? Mavididi, Fatal, and Patson Daka. They're all pretty fast, right? So I think that might have been part of the tactical ploy. That might have been why he selected. But I've got to say, there was one moment where he had the shot and he almost went out for a throw in with Patson. But other than that, for someone who literally hasn't played, he's had like a few minutes here and there, but he hasn't started a game all season. I think he can feel extremely pleased with himself. That was a very competent display, got a goal in the end, but his all-round play, he was even linking it up not too badly, which is something that you would not put as being one of his strengths. So that was good. I do still wonder with him though, where it leaves him. There is also, I mean, like there has been rumored this week that Kelechi has been once again linked with Crystal Palace. That is possible. I do think that regardless, he to me seems like the player that won't be here next season. Because I just feel that Iheanacho, I think a lot of us were expecting him to be a lot more dominant at this level. Maybe I'm getting a bit crazy, but when I saw Mitrovic a few seasons ago for Fulham break the championship scoring record, Mitrovic was one of those players who, when he was in the Premier League, you can tell he was good, but there were question marks of him. Is he really Premier League? He seems good, but not quite that good. But then
It
when
was
he
a
went down,
level,
it was like,
wasn't it? There was him. There was
well,
Buendia was another one.
yeah,
Grealish when he was younger as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
There was,
yeah, yeah,
there was that like I think Benjamin Bloom talks about like
yeah,
the
yeah.
goat of the championship, but not quite Premier League level.
Right. Do you know what? Maybe even Dewsbury Hall's at that sort of thing. But what I will say is that, whereas, because I will say KDH this season is showing, lads, I am a Premier League player. If this wasn't obvious before this season, now it's as obvious it will get. And I thought that Iheanacho might have a similar season to that, where it's like he's just a joke, like, just completely outscoring everybody, but he's not quite done it. Now, to be fair, that's because the system that we're playing maybe doesn't quite suit him, but then
And
he
he's
isn't
still up
asked.
there. If we look at for example, the Kelechi Iheanacho, he's still second. But again, Dewsbury Hall in terms of this, it's just the raw numbers. But I'm right. I think you're right. It's just that little bit missing. And at times when he's having a low patch and Vi's having a low patch, maybe that's what we needed from both of them, because they were both saying, I think, in the Sheffield Wednesday game, it just went wrong.
Yeah.
Both of them players are just having an off. So maybe it's kind of, again, it might be illness, but it might just be tactical. Look, get out the side, just relax yourself, and then come back for the game against, I think, Millwall in the next game.
Yeah, I would expect some of them to come back for the next one for sure. But I mean, as I say, it's funny you brought up that chart, but Vardy's still above him, and that kind of sums up Iheanacho's time here, that he's still ultimately second fiddle. And I would have thought by now, how many years has he been at the club now? 4 or something like that.
2017 he signed? No, it'll be more than that. 2017.
Really?
Yeah, he signed after the year we won the league, I think.
I think it was 2 seasons after that. But, so the year after. But point is that how is he not displaced Vardy? Now, one reason for that is because Jamie Vardy is our GOAT, right? And that's clear. It's not just he was good for a little bit. He's been consistent over a long period of time. But it's like now, especially we're in the championship, I would be expecting him to be like almost undroppable. Do you know, like Winks, or to be fair, KDH? These are players that you just know if they can play and it's a big game, they're playing, right? But anyway, let's not talk it into that. But for that reason, though, what I'm saying is I do wonder, like, I actually might, I guess my hot take is I think we'll still sign another striker in the summer. Actually, I've got a feeling that Kelechi will go. I think Vardy might retire, and then you're 2 down, right? And then Cannon's not going to lead the line. Daka, I don't see him staying here though, even though this was a good performance. But interesting that they gave him time. We'll see. Or maybe they're doing that to get him into the shop window. Because if you remember, Bournemouth were linked with him on deadline day this year as well. So there's a lot of things can go there. But yeah, as I say, overall good display from him.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Just to tie up, because there's so many players to get through and so many
Yeah,
specific
let's do
performances.
it. Yeah,
because there's going to be a few of them. Just to give you like a minute highlight on Fatawu, how do you think he did in today's game?
Jerry Taggart gave him man of the match. I think I would probably agree. I think he was absolutely superb. Beat his man all day. He's a joke. It's funny because obviously we've given Hermansen as saying he's the signing of the summer, or the season, not just for us, but for any club. But I think Fatawu looks really good. He might be expensive, but that is definitely a Premier League player. He might not quite be there yet, but everything you see about him, he's not just got what it takes to be in the Premier League, but in my opinion, to be a good, if not very good, Premier League player.
Yeah, and
I
he's
get
had
like
chaos.
Diego Jota vibe. Yeah. I was gonna say like Diego Jota vibes, where when he was at Wolves, he was really good, and it was only a matter of time before he went to like a Liverpool, and then he did well at Liverpool. And I think Fatawu could be very similar. So why was he good? He was threatening with the ball. He put some great crosses in. Unselfish play at times. Works hard off the ball. He made like a great challenge to put the ball out for a corner. He played in that pass when did he? I still think the pass was decent. Maybe it could be better, but it wasn't a bad one. Everything he did was class. Unlucky not to score. Did he assist in the end? I don't know, but he was superb. Yeah, great player.
I think he did. For the second goal, he was the person that knocked it on. I think this is one thing that when I've interviewed a Ghanaian journalist, he was mentioning that at times Fatal is too selfish with the ball and he'll try and take everything and do it himself, which we saw earlier on in the season he was trying to. Now you can see again he's being like the opposite. He's being too selfless. He probably should have shot for 35 minutes. At 35 minutes, he probably shouldn't have put it. But again, he's trying to. But I think it's also helping. Probably should have scored. It's helping the fact that he's probably got. He's got. You just tell with the likes of Iheanacho and Ndidi, he's got this good relationship with them. And again, I don't think if you put in Dennis Pratt and Cassidy in the second half, I think there's a reason why he didn't shine as much. Not because he's a good player, not because he's a bad player, just because A, he was shifted onto the left-hand side, and B, he's got players that are like, I click with them. Now, my issue is if Ndidi and Iheanacho do leave, does he not come down? Do you see what I mean? Because there's some players, like the amount of times he's put a ball, I think it was against West Brom. He puts the ball in and he knows where Wilfred Ndidi's running. Before Wilfred Ndidi, he just set up right is there, bang, put it in, and then he puts the ball over to KH to score the first goal.
I wouldn't worry about that, Neil, because I think we play system football, and therefore people who understand the system. Now, honestly, that's one of the advantages. That's why if you look at it in the last 10 years, that's been one of the biggest differences, is that now everyone's about positional play and having a structure. That's why even when we make changes, you still see similar patterns of play. You are right that there isn't quite the cohesiveness there because everyone in the system needs to learn it. But for example, Klopp and Man City, Guardiola, Man City are similar to this. They will often sign a player, and the first season, that player doesn't look particularly special, or the first 6 months, they don't look particularly special. And then all of a sudden, they're absolutely ridiculous and/or world class. Like Fabinho, this has happened to Bernardo Silva, Jack Grealish. Some people still not might be that confident with him, but yeah, lots of them like that. But anyway, why is that? And it's because they have to understand where you need to play. Like Maresca has even said, like, oh, that's why Cannon, he has not given him the opportunity. I think that's what he's talking about. He's saying behind closed doors, it's like, okay, when we're doing these patterns of play, for example, say that move, like I say, the one that I love where we do pull them all onto the halfway line and the attacking eights rushing behind, right? If the striker's not doing his part, then that whole move doesn't happen. So you've got to time it right. So I think that's what it's about. And so I wouldn't be that. I agree, we'll lose some fluency, but I think as the season goes on and some of these players get more game time, I wouldn't be too afraid of that. And for me, I have no concerns about Fatawa too. I just think he's got the raw ingredients. And the only thing that I think could ever prevent him would be one, if he was had bad personality, like he threw a strop and he was arrogant, and he doesn't have that at all. He seems like a genuinely good lad. And two, if he was just completely brain dead, like Damari Gray, which might sound a bit offensive, but it's like Damari Gray was fast, he could shoot, he was skillful, and yet he just made terrible decision after terrible decision when he was on the ball. And for Tawu, I think one, because we're playing system football, so he doesn't even need to think about it too much. But two, just because he's young enough that he can be taught. And I think Maresca's a really good coach, you can tell that. That's why I'm just confident that he is going to end up being a really, really good player. So if he doesn't get injured, I think Fatawi is going to end up being a 50 to 60 million pound player as well. I mean, I think he's got more in his skill set even than Harvey Barnes, for example. And Barnes was very good for us and went for a lot of money.
Yep, and you're right. And I think we did cover the Barnes thing in a previous video, not to again say not to cover it again. It's just because we've got so much to go through. So I'm having to skip over again. Mavididi is another one because we'll get into the goals second. But we mentioned the second goal, the third goal with Mavididi. I think he had a great game in this as well. Until he was subbed off. But again, it was understanding just to rest him for the next game because we don't have that many left wingers in that position. What I loved about that is that I thought the opportunity was dead. And he was like, and it was like, I can't see what he's done. Oh, he's missed it. He should have took it early. Okay, 1-2 defense, put the one, but all right, then put the ball away.
Yeah.
For me, that was more impressive than a Harvey Barnes taking a man on, getting the space and putting it in the corner. You see what I mean? The ball was regressing and the XG or that there was less of an opportunity, but he still managed to find the space, put the defender down, then put it away.
Yeah, it's more old-fashioned winger play rather than inside forward. And I think that's the thing with all of the ones that we've signed, because Fatawi is the same. They're going to take on their man. They'll have that flair, and we love to see it. Whereas, yeah, Harvey Barnes, I think there's a statistic saying that he, in the last 2 years, has scored more goals through a 1-2 than any other player. So that was his strategy. You gave him the ball, he plays the 1-2 to the midfielder, they return it to him, and then he takes the shot. So he would never beat you with skill. He'd beat you with pace, and to be fair, a pre-rehearsed team move. He's still got 15 goals. I mean, he's pretty good at it. But yeah, Mavadidi's got that. There was one point in the second, was it first or second half, where Faz was telling him off because he tried to do some trickery to get out of trouble. And the trick looked good, but he lost the ball. And Faz like, what the hell are you doing, bro? But you're wearing a 10 on a shirt. So for me, if there's one player on the pitch who is entitled to be a bit showboaty and do that kind of stuff, it is your number 10. It is kind of Madison-esque. We'll have to see. I mean, for me, I'm still, I've given Fatawa a lot of credit. Mavididi, I'm still on the fence about. I did notice that, in the pre-match, even Maresca said that with Mavididi, he has what it takes to be a Premier League player, but he's got to get consistent. And sometimes he's up and sometimes he's down. And that will be the big question with him. Because I'm not entirely convinced he is going to make it in the Premier League yet. But on his day, he's still a very good player. Today was his day. And when he plays like that, it's a joy to see, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And even then, he was still, which is, again, I've never been so on page with the manager in terms of what he's saying, in terms of the development of certain players as well. So again, I'm with you there. Then coming into, we made, again, when we went the second goal, again, brilliant. Ndidi's goal was just beautifully, just at that time, it felt like, at that time when it got to 4-0 with Ndidi's going in, it was just like the tackle from Chowdhury was just, again, something we've been seeing a lot more as well. Him closing up, especially second halves in the game, where, right, I'm going to be aggressive and win the ball high up and give the ball to, I think it was Daka. So we got a goal and an assist Daka did. Then gave it to Ndidi, who, again, it was just a beautiful, ball. And it was just it felt like the Southampton when we played for the 9-0. It's just everything that we touched was turning goal and going in. And that's what it felt like at the time. It felt like there was another 4 to come.
Yeah. I was going to say at that point, I thought, wow, this is going to be really bad for Plymouth, who up until that point didn't even play that bad. But from that point on, you could even see their fans in the thing were fearing the worst, and they were quite right to fear the worst, as it turned out. Yeah, it was really, really good play. We were getting there. But yeah, I think one thing we should say, because it's like the Mavididi thing as well. So I mentioned this before, but I felt like the biggest difference in this game compared to previous games is that when we were going for attacks, we were being way more direct than what we've done in the past. So before, we've always had a super patient style of wait, make these really intricate chances. I think the one that really stands out, I'm struggling to remember what team it was, but Kelechi scored the goal. It was literally our first attack on goal, but he got it in. And it was a team that was just here to park the bus. Maybe it was Stoke, something like that. No, Preston, I think we scored in the second half, and that was a night time. So I think it might be Stoke instead, but it was something like that. I remember your video was another bus smashed or something like that. It was one of those teams, right? But yeah, the thing is, before that goal, I could even see some people getting a bit oh, what are we doing? But then we was one chance, one goal. That's what we do. But I do agree with them, which is to say that I feel that especially in this division, Like, there's a concept of the 50-50. Now, if you make the whole game a 50-50, that's bad. It can literally go either way. But, when it's in the final third and you've got the better players, it suits you. So sometimes you can be a little bit more like that. So, for example, that's why I like Mavididi taking on his, even though he doesn't have to do that, because he's thinking, I'm better than you. Like, not being funny, but you were playing in League One last year. I've played in the top flight in French football. So I'm going to have a go at you. I'm going to beat you. And look, funny enough, he does, and he gets the goal kind of thing. And same with the other ones. So we had more shots when we did it and did it. So I like that. And I think all of those goals basically had that in common, I feel. That it was like more aggressiveness in terms of like something that felt like, rather than just passing around. No, we're going to like really, we're either going to have a shot, right, or we're going to score from this attempt. So I think that was the biggest difference. I really hope we keep doing that, to be honest with you. Perhaps it does depend on the team, because perhaps like you just like go the other way, because you made a great video actually about Enzo's tactical masterclass on the coach's voice, which of course for me was something that I was really looking forward to watching. I was a bit disappointed it was only 10 minutes. I could quite happily listen to Enzo for 3 hours. But I think one of the big things he says is that he wants to control the game, right? So the thing is when you go for these 50-50 balls, and this happened again to the West Brom last week, and we were fortunate, we took advantage of it, is that they put the ball into the mixer in the last minute of the game, thinking we've got the adrenaline, we've just scored the equalizer, the home crowd is behind us, we can smell blood, so we're going to go for it. Everyone's going up for it. Ball gets headed out, there's a 50-50. What happens? It goes Leicester's way. What happens after that? Counter-attack, and they lose the game. So that's why you've got to be careful with 50-50s. And that is in the final area. Now, to be fair, that's because they were suicidal in their defensive line. But my point is that is what Enzo is saying. He's saying that like the thing is that on the transition, and the Premier League more than any other league in the world is all about transition, is that that's how a lot of goals get scored, because you make a mistake rather than you force good play. So he wants to have some of the structure. So that's why, in general, we don't make as many direct attacks. But there's a time and a place for it. And we did it today, and it absolutely worked. So I think I would say, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how direct are Leicester is like 2. There's literally even the chart saying here's the type of attacking teams in the Championship. And Leicester in the bottom right, where it says slow and intricate. Whereas fast and direct is literally Leeds. And actually, funny enough, Plymouth today, both those teams have fast and direct. Like, they don't waste any time. They transition the ball
counter-attack.
Yeah. Well, not even just counter-attack, but you can just play vertically and just trying to get the ball forward as fast as possible. And like, if it breaks, because the thing is, if you've got a 3-man press and the ball breaks, it's more likely to break for you. There is that style of play. So yeah, let's keep going on, because there's a lot more to talk about. But I think that's the TLDR. More direct play. We got more goals. And it can work. I think that's, in my opinion, I hope we go more towards that style. I'm not saying 9 out of 10, but on that sliding scale, I'd like to see us more like 5, 6, 7 than 2 out of 10. We'll see if it's true or not, because I got a feeling it won't be.
And again, we are getting, and a performance like this has really nailed home the fact that we're getting there. We're slowly getting, and we can see it for periods of time where there was a 10 minutes of onslaught. But the problem is it needs to be, especially in the first half, it was offset by the 10 minutes of chaos, basically. We lost it. So we need to make sure that those ratios are going, even if it's just we're going to keep the ball and we're going to pass it around the back, rather than we're going to lose the ball and then wait for the next wave to come again. Just coming into the next ones as well, because I'll just go on to the next one. So we're going to skip over some of them. We'll talk about Nelson, steady Eddie, didn't do anything wrong. Glad he got his debut. Don't think we touched on him too much.
Yeah, fair enough.
Just because he for a debut, he did what he needed to do. Didn't put a foot wrong. The game was put to bed. He didn't make a mistake, which is great. Then coming into, I'll ignore Winks and Chowdhury for now, because I want to concentrate on the front, these ones here. So we'll ignore Fatu because we talked about that. It was, I believe the first time we saw Casadei and Pratt in the same one. I think you said you were really, really impressed with Pratt. I believe Pratt was on the right and Casadei was on the left. What did you make of them two, Drew? Because you mentioned about KDH and Ndidi, who I thought had a great game.
I think they were the other way around, actually. But to be fair, they were interchanging a lot. Well, Pratt had some nice touches. I don't want to go overboard, because he didn't score or get an assist or anything like that. So I don't want to make it, because sometimes people have revisionist history on Dennis Pratt, like he's the missing link. And it's like, well, if he was that much of a missing link, why did he never get into the Brendan Rodgers team? And why has he done that? But he had some nice touches and he looked good. I do feel that on paper, this should be a position in the system that he should excel at. So let's see if that is or isn't true. But I could see with Ndidi going to be away from AFCON that clearly he will get game time. And I'm interested to see what he could do, because I've got a feeling he could be someone that makes a big difference for us at this time in the season. It's kind of all geared up for him to do it. Cassidy, similar sort of thing. I'll say one thing. He played this first time I've seen it, like he was doing step overs and he was like really trying to like run with the ball, which I've not actually seen him do before. Right. So I feel that is something that's been coached, because that is something that Kiernan Dewsbury Hall doesn't necessarily do step overs, but what he's amazing at, and genuinely amazing, like elite stats, even when he's in the Premier League, he's in the top 1% for doing this, is progressive carries, they call it. So you give him the ball, and Patrick Vieira style from the dominant Arsenal team is he takes the ball 20 yards forward. And of course, not only does he take the ball 20 yards forward, but the game gets moved 20 yards forward. And that is so good, because if you want to play front foot attacking with the protagonist football, you want players to be able to do that. That's one of his big strengths. Even Ndidi is quite good at doing that. He doesn't get enough praise for doing it, but he's got the engine and he takes the ball in the game forward. So this time Cassidy was trying to do it. That I actually quite admired. It was good to see that. That's something I hadn't seen in his game before. But he had like a chance to put a ball into Tom Cannon, mucked it up. You know, a few other things as well.
For me, that was it. I'm with you, because I spotted the same thing. I was like, oh, he's created. And then also when I've noticed he was running and there's nobody around him, there was a complete hole where he would go into this space. It was his final pass. It was, and that's what it was again. And he's been a bit of I think we've mentioned it before, but it's just that little bit of finesse that he needs coming into the game. However, he was linking up nice down the right hand side. He was making the runs as we wanted him to do. It just wasn't quite. I think at times he nearly had a 1-on-1 towards the end of the game as well.
Exactly.
He was playing, and I don't know if all Brighton helped with that at all, but maybe it's that he just helped in that position. He did slow the game down a little bit. I don't want to be too harsh on him, because again, I still think there's a great player in him. I just don't think it's quite working out at Leicester. And the other player that I've got one mentioned, and we've gone the whole thing because people have been mentioning in the Cannon, Tom Cannon, mentioned all about Cannon, but once the Cannon debut, we mentioned that Cannon as well. Cannon scored. No, Cannon didn't score, but in the game again, he's still raw. He's still young. He's going to be a good talent. What did you make of him in the game?
It wasn't really enough to kind of tell what he's going to be like. I did notice he lost it a few times when trying to do the link-up play. And so that's where I've got a feeling that Enzo's kind of like, he's not quite ready for that. So to be honest with you, I'd say it's more of a negative that stood out for me that he did that. But I will say, in terms of an attacking sense, you could tell he was a striker in that he took up some really good positions. And there was one like near the end where he got like a little snapshot away. And it went wide. It wasn't the most powerful thing, but he went for it immediately. And I like that. That's someone who, like, you know, they can sniff the goal. They want to score the goal. They know that there was, and it was like, that was something that, like, you know, if you were confident and playing in the team for a while, you could even bury that. Like a really elite striker, you know, could on occasion do that. So that was good to see. Yeah, but I think otherwise, like, you know, at the same time with him and a lot of the other ones, even like with Cassidy, it's like, I think it's a bit unfair to like judge people when you've come in with that many changes where the soul's sort of been sucked out of the game. Like, you can even tell the way that we were playing. We were still trying to put moves together and stuff like that, but it's like no one's breaking a neck to try and either score or stop a goal, because it's like, you know, the game is done by that point in time. So it was interesting to see. Good that he got it in a kind of low pressure environment. Let's see how he does going forward. Not as impressive as Daka, I would say, but he didn't play for as long as Daka, so that's a bit unfair to say that.
I'm with you.
We'll see how it goes. I think, to be fair to him, it's maybe a bit unfortunate that we couldn't give him more opportunities. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, he never really got one clear-cut opportunity to like properly score. And that's what you really want as a striker, right? So imagine he did, you know.
Yeah, and again, that will come there with the more he's into the team. And I think one player that I think from the substitutions, in my opinion, that will go under the radar, who I actually think was, again, a player that's not been playing a lot. I actually mentioned Mark Albrighton. In that second half, what he did, create down the left, bringing people into the game, giving you the work, giving you the energy, getting into goal-scoring positions, which we've not said about Mark Albrighton.
Yeah.
I think he's a very good... I think he's in this game, there's going to people are going to mention again. Cannon's going to get one. I think we have to give a special shout out to Mark Brighton. I don't think he's even been on the bench for a few of these games. Comes in 4-0 up, but goes, you know what? I'm not going to sit in. I'm not going to play. I'm going to give the energy to the team. I go, and the manager knows what I need from him, and I think he played great. I think it was ironic. I think it was the best sub that we made out of all of them.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. And I think it's funny because it's like, shock horror, Mark Albrighton written off again. It's like, how many times has that happened in his career? Tons of times. You're right. He was dynamic. He played the ball directly. Do you remember there was that game where Iheanacho almost scored the goal of the season? And it was Albrighton that it started off in a halfway line. Iheanacho beat two men, put it out to the wide. This was against Preston. It was right at the very end. He beat two men. He popped it out to the right-hand side. He continued his right. Albrighton swung in across first time. And even the commentator go, this will be goal of the season if it goes in. And unfortunately, it didn't. But that was Albrighton again. So you know what you're going to get there. And it was pretty good to see. So, yeah, I think he was impressive. That said, I don't really see him being anything other than like an impact player. But I know maybe with the games coming thick and fast, he will just kind of like go through them because you'll have to. And we probably will pick up injuries. So I think he will get some games. And I think he's proven, yeah, as you said, I think the good thing it showed is that in this system, he's still got something to offer. That Albrighton, just the way that he plays, is I can't think ever in his Leicester career has he ever beaten a man 1-for-1. Not that I can think of. And the way that we play, because you isolate, literally the system, you do the switch ball and the winger's one-on-one with the defender. But with Albrighton, he's never even going to try and take that guy on. He's just going to cut back and try and cross it or whatever like that. So it feels like it's a non-starter to me. But who knows? Maybe you can get something out of him. And I do agree. I think he was the most effective of the subs. Had a good display
as well that we have that we can go. We're not even going to bring him on the bench. We're going to leave him out for 3 games training, and we're going to bring him on, and he's going to again be the best impact sub. And his name was sang quite a few times around the stadium as well, just to get in a couple of bits as well. That I was going to, I'll get into the stats, and then I'll get into the other form. I want to get into formation. There's so many other bits I want to mention as well. So you mentioned XG in this one. We only had three XG, which I thought was surprising.
And that's still pretty high, though. I wouldn't be surprised if that is the for another game now, another week that we've got the highest XG in the league. Because that's just the way that it's done. So that's actually quite high, I would say.
Fair enough.
But a lot more shots on target. Although funny enough, not as many shots. Look, they've had more shots than we have. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? Which is interesting. But we have high quality ones this time around. Yeah.
Exactly. It's reflecting the XG. Offsides, fouls, again, free kicks, relatively safe. There's one thing that I want to shout out. One thing I want to mention again, who Tactical actually spotted this as well, which I thought was really interesting. And he mentions, let me get this up and let me get his original tweet instead of me going, we're going to take that from SofaScore because he took it from there. Maintain positioning, good performance, good result. Just want to get your thoughts on this average position as well, because again, in terms of what we're doing, you can see the back 5 being there. You can see the 2 again, the number 80, the number 8's there as well. Patterson Daka, and then you've got actually Fatal was playing in the average position deeper than Wilfred and Diddy.
Well, not just that, but way more centrally than Wilfred and Diddy. But that the thing with these average pitch positions is that I still think that looks pretty good. You can sometimes tell what that means in the game. So you can see here that actually, well, look at like where Hamza Chowdhury is actually even. So some interesting things there. I mean, if you look at the game, what I really like is I think, you mentioned the connection, but what Fatawu and Ndidi definitely have, because they've done it several times already this season, is that Fatawu cuts in and then Wilf makes the run outside into the pocket, and then Fatawu slips the ball down through the pocket, and then Ndidi does the cross. That's how KDH scored last week. And that works very well. So they have a good relationship doing that. In fact, it's funny how that happens a lot between those two, but it doesn't happen so often with KDH and Mavadidi on the other side there, which is how you can see that. I would say what's interesting there is that, if you look at the two, normally it's KDH who's one of the furthest forwards of the 8, but this time around, Wilfred Ndidi is the player who's the furthest forward in the entire game. But then it's average position, so that's going to take into account things for when he's gone running on one-on-one with the goal. That's why sometimes the average positions doesn't tell the full shape. But if you were to look at that, you'd think, oh, blimey, the 25 here must have been pushing up quite high most of the game, which is kind of true. you'd be thinking, oh, the 18, whoever he is, must be dipping in more from a wide player, which he did, etc., etc. Yeah, there you go. You can see that what they just go back to. I think the biggest difference is you see is that like normally when we have like the double pivot is that Hamza didn't have to play so side by side with Winks today. That's kind of interesting.
Yep, very good. Make a good point. I just want to bring in a final guest all the way from Australia. We've got Luke in as well. Luke, mate, again, great to have you on. Give us your thoughts on that one, because you must have. We were crapping ourselves at half time, weren't we? Going, oh my god, we're doing this again. Oh, it's gonna be another Wednesday, and then turns it on. Bang, we're on to another level, aren't we?
Mate, I think I've nearly missed like a good 20 minutes of that game. So I got so excited messaging all of you, and outside of the game, I had to kind of put my phone down. But that was amazing for me. Enzo, other than Fatau, Enzo Maresca, man of the match, really settled down that back three at half time. I don't know what he said, but it worked.
Again, that's something that we've said before. But even if we're dodgy going into half time, I respect Enzo to go, right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to change things slightly and we're going to go again. I'm going to try and create a video, because I did, let's see if I can find it. I went down to the Q&A at the on Wednesday. I've just not had time to do the video. So
you went. Awesome.
I managed to go last minute. But I've got notes on notes, people. Proper journalists. I'm not a journalist. I've got notes on that. Some of them are very like softball answers. There's some really good stuff in there as well that he was mentioning, which I was quite happy about. Speaking of Enzo, let's get into some of the comments that he's made as well recently. So one thing he mentions, again, we played well on the ball, made changes off the ball at half time, and deserves to take the win. So again, even though he's mentioned at half time, he's making decisions, Luke, it shows you that what he's doing, what he's saying is working. And yeah, credit to him.
100%. Like how much like a lot of people have been complaining about how slow we're being on the ball, but like that was some of the fastest one-touch, beautiful, direct football I've seen us play. You know, you could really see us working the overload a lot better in that game.
Yeah, exactly. And especially in the second half, that's the first time I think we mentioned, I know, that we just turned it up to we got into that final gear of the car. And then we'll take it off. We'll take it off a little bit. We'll just put it in cruise control a little bit more. But we can see
the change he made, though, right? That's the change he made, and that's why we dominated the game with the scoreline, I think. So yeah, I hope he makes that change more often, but for sure.
Yeah. Fantastic. And then just the last one before we finish up as well. Getting on to the last one from Enzo. I've only got a couple of bits as well. Play one striker today. Pat Sadaka took his chance. Very good guy, deserves it. Nothing too surprising what he's saying, but again, Luke, you were probably surprised as the rest of us when you found out that he was starting.
I was absolutely shocked. Yeah, this strange. I wonder if that was like, because it was strange seeing, like, we usually see like for like with the subs, particularly between our two strikers, and they both got individual 90 minutes plus each, and then they're not even on the bench, and then Daka gets a start. It was just, I never would have guessed that, to be honest with you, but like credit to him, he took his chance, and now we've got a bit of a headache for the next starting 11.
Golden problem, exactly.
Good problem to have.
Yeah, exactly. And then next thing we've got, again, I think it's pretty much everything we managed to cover. Roll on to Millwall at home on Wednesday. I mean, you're probably going to see, I know, the majority of that, probably the same starting team, but with probably either Iheanacho or Jamie Vardy up top.
That would be my expectation. Ricardo to come in back for Chowdhury. That said, I've got to say, Millwall are another team that they changed their manager recently, and I don't think it's gone that well for their new manager. What was their score today, actually? Maybe someone can tell me.
That was another thing.
So it was 1-0. 1-0.
To Millwall?
No, Millwall lost 1-0.
Yeah, that's my point. So, look, I don't want to tempt fate, right? Because you can't keep running away with it. But it's like, if you were going to start making some rotation, I would say this is a team to do it at. So maybe he will throw in another surprise like the Daka thing. Do you know what? I wouldn't even be that surprised if he started Daka again. I know it sounds stupid, but it's like, if your player's in form and they've had a good game, why would you take them out of the team? I mean, to be fair, he did that to Wanya Marcel earlier in the season, who scored, and then there's never been seen since. But, you know, what I guess I'm saying is that, like,
he's just around the corner as well.
There's that, right? So, well, therefore, get him games out of him now whilst you can, because he's not going to be able to play next month. And that said, it's like, you know, there's so many games this month. It's like, you know, giving some people a little bit less of the workload is going to be good. But I think you're going to see KDH and Ndidi start there regardless. I do feel that that's always the thing, is if you don't start with those two, that's the biggest difference in my opinion. then you really see the performance levels of the team drop, which I think is an issue for us, because what if one of those guys picks up injuries? Yeah, go on, Luke.
Sorry, mate. I'm just itching to say this. To be fair, I've got two things I want to say. One, we saw Daka drop deep. It was one of the questions I wanted to see if he was going to play the Enzo way, and he did. Second, I thought Pratt, for the limited time he was on, played absolutely excellent. So I am worried if Keenan Jusby Hall goes down. But I think we usually seen Pratt more on the right hand side, that high pressing A, but we've seen him a lot more on the left. And I thought he had, for the time he was on, he was great. But what do you guys reckon? Is it minutes, or are we putting both Pratt and Daka in the shop window for January?
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier as well. I think there could be something to do with that, because at the same time is that, especially in Pratt's case, his contract's running down as well. And Enzo mentioned in the pre-match press conference that he goes, look, with any new players, the thing is that we literally have a full squad. We already have the 25. So even if we want to sign someone, someone's got to go before we can sign someone. And so therefore, for that reason, I think it would not be a surprise if we see some departures and coming in, because yeah, I feel like well, actually, maybe we can talk about it briefly, but we have been linked with some quite saucy players recently.
That was my thing.
Yeah, because look, you've asked me several times, like, Luke, to be fair to me, he keeps going, what do you think, Anil? Do you think we're going to sign anyone? I'm like, Luke, nah, mate, don't get your hopes up. It's not going to happen. Your Christmas present isn't coming true, but I'm the one that's wrong, because clearly you can see that the players that we've been linked with is a left-sided centre-back, unsurprising, because Callum Doyle's injured, and an attacking number 8. We've been linked with both of those two type of players. And the ones that we've been linked with seem, I think, more ambitious than I was expecting. So, the Brazilian left centre back, they're talking like 18 million pounds. That would be, I think, a record for a championship team. I think the Danish number 8 is still probably going to be about 10 million pounds as well. So those are pretty big prices. And well, look, Kelechi Iheanacho has been linked with Crystal Palace. He maybe isn't going to sign a contract at the end of the season. So that could be a space that appears in the team. And Dennis Pratt, similar thing. Even though I have to say, I think he would be a great squad player to have between now and the end of the season. I still would take him any day over Cassidy, but at the same time, he's probably on big wages. And yeah, if he goes out for someone who does want to be here to come in, I would do that. Because, my personal beef with, like, say, the Cassidy thing is that, like, because I don't think we have this permanent option on him, so why are we developing a player who isn't going to be here next year, unless it's a 2-season loan deal, which maybe secretly it is, who knows? I would far rather have it that these other players that, like, even if they aren't going to be, like, Fatau, I think is the great example. He's got all this potential. I think he's playing really well, but he's not the finished article. But I'm excited because the Abdul Fatau that we're going to see next season or the season after that is going to be some player. And so I like that with, like, trying to develop things. So yeah, maybe we are going to see someone in. And I think, rambling here, but as per your point, Luke, yeah, I think some players may well be in the shop window.
Yeah. And I'm with you, and I think potentially that's one of the reasons why we're playing them. And we've got a lot of asset value within the squad, even if they're running out. 2 goalkeepers, probably potentially even 3, could leave in January, with Smithies, Ward's not getting the squad, Everson's not getting in the squad as well. So you've got 3 positions there that can be made most of as well. You've got players like Ben Nelson, just Reece Nelson and Ben Nelson in the team as well. But again, they can step in that position as well. And just to come into finally, before we kind of finish up, a couple of other things they mentioned as well. Iheanacho missed the game due to illness. Against you, right?
Unsurprising, yeah.
Vardy has a little bit of a knee problem. Casey McAteer was out with a muscle problem. And then Eunice will be back for Wednesday as well. But even saying that strength and depth, Luke, I mean, it's the fact that we've got, again, 2 of the key strikers, Casey McAteer, young guy, and Eunice, who, again, we've mentioned how good he was as well, out, and we still put them to the sword. Great.
Absolutely. We flexed our bench big time today. Like, I don't think we would have seen as much subs as we did if it wasn't 4-0 up, but I still liked it and I still rated it. And don't forget, we got Will Alves banging on the door as well. It's only a matter of time until we start seeing him maybe potentially get integrated to at least the bench, maybe getting a late start.
See if I can find the comment from Enzo that he mentioned about Will Alves. Where's it gone? It was towards the end. He mentioned that has something special. It will take time to bed in. Be patient with him. But I think Enzo really likes him.
That's good.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So that's a couple of things he was saying. Again, I will try and get some of these out, but it was, and that's something's coming out. And again, if you do want to find out what happened about Willie, because they interviewed Enzo and Willie Kirk at the same time, I think Hannah, if you go, Alice, if you follow her, find a specific one, she did an article on Leicester City Women's Supporters Club, going down through the full in terms of the women's side of things and Willie Kirk and things like that. But anyway, I'll try and do another video, but games are coming thick and fast now.
Yeah. Crazy
My
amount
internet's
of them.
dying. But Luke, any final thoughts?
No, mate, because I don't know how much you guys have really covered already. I just wanted to come in and just gush a little bit with you guys about that game. Man of the match for me, Enzo Maresca. I think he's made some brilliant changes. Yeah, let's take a left field option. And yeah, thanks for having us up briefly. Good to see you guys.
Pleasure having you on, mate. And I know, yeah, final thoughts before we finish.
Hope we see more of that. More attacking, more direct, more dynamic. Love to see it. Roll on. It's a big month, this one. On to Millwall on Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly. And just on that is this one as well. Just before we finish up, again, forgot to do the table and things like that. But just to show you as well, this was a statement win. Like 2-0 Leeds, again, was good win. Sunderland 2-1, 1-0, 1-0, our 4-0, and everything else is 1 or 2, 1 or 2. And even Coventry that won 2-0 against Birmingham. So it shows you, again, there's that kind of the statement where other people are great, but we're winning 4-0. That's going to have an impact, I think, as well. And the fact this score that we had. And finally, before we go, Ipswich won as well. Ipswich are phenomenal, doing unbelievably well at the moment. But just sit 1 point behind us. That gap between us and Leeds is now, again 8 points. So it is closing, but we are in a good position. One thing I just realised, Cardiff have come out of nowhere. It's been just get win here, win here, win here. They've been doing really, really well.
Nah, they've been knocking on the door for a while, but they kind of keep bobbing in and out. But they will certainly be amongst it. That's for sure. West Brom lost today, which was a bit of a surprise. I think that was the most surprising result so far today, because otherwise they looked really good. There you go, though. I mean, that's what I'm saying. The Championship, it's like this. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's great that we've got the points lead, and just got to keep getting those points. Even if you draw, it might feel like points drop. But I keep saying in this division, you'll be surprised. Anyone can go on a bad run of form, as we ourselves have encountered. I actually didn't expect it to happen like that. I didn't think we'd ever see 2 defeats in a row all season, and it literally did happen to us very shortly after, our incredible run. So, yeah, it just shows this brutal league.
Yep. And just on that as well, it looked Southampton drew last minute as well. So they drew
a 1-1. Did they? That's a great one. Okay, yeah.
Yep. So I'll just check the Watford, because they were 1-0 up last time I checked. They drew 1-1 to that. So again, another couple of points boost over them. Again, thanks everybody for joining. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Again, I'll leave Luke's channel down below. I know I will try and plug, but he doesn't like to plug himself. But his channels are there if you want to go find him out. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll see you for the Millwall game. So goodbye.